We are joined by former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, who's one of the most demonized people out there because she upsets the entire political structure. And she joins us now to discuss the Ukraine, Syria, what's happening all over the world, what's happening with Obamacare. You know, as she has said many times, paraphrasing others, Obama isn't the lesser of two evils. He's the more effective of evils. Can you imagine if Bush would have gotten a third term and would have tried this type of stuff? The country, to quote KRS-One on this broadcast, was on the verge of revolution. Put Bush in a third term, you would have had a revolution. You put Obama in, everybody goes back to sleep. And then he can launch wars, invade Africa with AFRICOM, which I said in the Obama deception 6 years ago. We knew who his advisors were. We knew who was financing him. People say, well, then should we have voted for John McCain? No. It's like a Don King match. It's like, who do I bet on in this heavyweight championship? He owns both the fighters. You can bet your bottom dollar it's rigged. He was rigging bookmaking 50 years ago and beating people to death. So the answer is you don't bet on either pony. And it comes down to that. It comes down to getting past the political labels and getting past the football issues that they pass back and forth and getting down to the fact that we've been conquered by offshore megabanks that are engaging in divide and conquer and COINTELPRO and Cass Sunstein's cognitive infiltration to make us infight with each other, black, white, old, young, north, south, east, west, while the power structure sets up a paramilitary force to go after their domestic enemies. And that's what's happening here, is the ruling class wants to continue their predatory activity. And I wanted to get Cynthia McKinney's take on all these issues. But first off, I wanted to get her take on the armored vehicles, the 2.6 billion rounds of ammunition, Homeland Security training to take on gun owners and libertarians and constitutionalists and people, you know, anti-war folks. The whole list is anybody who's politically aware, has a conscience, whatever name you call yourself, if you're involved, if you don't want the NSA spying on you. They're now saying Homeland Security's for us. This is a classical tyrannical takeover in slow motion, but it's accelerating. And the only way they could get it done is with Obama. And so that's why I point out that Obama has been so destructive, because they can have people like, what was it, Agent C-17, Al Sharpton, who I know Cynthia McKinney knows. I want to get her take on this. We can have people like this gentleman who it's now coming out supposedly, you know, this FBI informant and all the rest of it. Well, look at what we heard about Jesse Jackson or any of, not just, quote, black leaders, other people. This whole government system of infiltrating out there. Cynthia, I've thrown out a shotgun effective information. Run, CynthiaRun.org. Folks still want you to run for Congress again, and we'll talk about that later as well. Will you do it? But I just threw all that out there. What do you want to tackle first?
Well, the system of informants. Let's deal with that one first, because we don't know. The Department of Homeland Security, and you have reported this, has recruited people from neighborhoods, not just from organizations and from corporations, but from neighborhoods, average, ordinary folk, to serve as informants, to let, you know, this whole thing, if you see something, say something. Well, it comes from someplace. And what it comes from is having a whole new set of eyes. That's your friends' eyes, your cohort in your organizations, your social and community organizations, in your churches. You don't know who is who anymore, because one of the ways that the FBI used in COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, to disrupt organizations was through the cultivation of informants. And eventually, as one friend of mine said in the Black Panther Party, there were more informants than there were members. And this is the embodiment of everything that we heard was happening in communist countries that the United States was supposedly against. So this whole informant cultivation, I was against. It was a voice vote that was taken for the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security, and I was by myself again, but I did my voice vote against the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security. That was in the International Relations Committee. The bottom line is that we don't need a Department of Homeland Security. And if I were back in Congress, maybe that's one of the first bills I introduce is to dismantle what has been constructed, because the only purpose of Homeland Security, it's not, they have tried to tell us that our fellow Americans are enemies. So they're securing whom from whom. That's the first thing. Second thing, with respect to President Obama, well, you mentioned Obamacare, which, I just think is, I had a friend over here on March 30th. No, March 31st. And so it was the last day, which of course they've extended, but it was the last day. And we don't know, there hasn't been enough talk, in my opinion, on the IRS hammer that's going to come down on people who, for whatever reason, don't sign up. But first of all, when you go through the process, you have to give the government so much of your information. Now, there was a time when I would have supported that. And under different circumstances, I might support. But under the current circumstances, where I'm not really even going to get health care, what I'm going to get is health insurance. The other thing is that people are saying, oh, well, my health insurance cost me $0. That is not correct, because the subsidy is a government payment from the government of direct pipeline to the insurance companies. Now, the insurance companies are part of the problem. They stepped in between the patient and the healthcare professional.
That's right. They want to control the quality of care, cut it back, jack up the price. They're the ones that wrote it. That's why the Republican leadership won't kill it. It's a big scam, just like Clinton and Bush together being best buddies. That whole thing was staged. That's come out. They're all in the CIA. It's all a big scam. The insurance companies wrote it to rip everybody off. It's not even socialist health care. It's fascist health care.
No, you're absolutely right. And my position is Medicare for all. Okay. Now, if I were going to get health care, that's one thing.
Oh, I got to say, that would have been so easy. You don't qualify, you're poor, you get Medicare. No. We got to give corporate welfare to the insurance companies that is just on its face 500 times worse than any limited solution of taking care of poor people.
It absolutely is 500 times worse. You couldn't have said it better. And then this matter, getting back to Homeland Security and the cultivation of the informants, it appears that what's happening is through this Department of Homeland Security, we're reinstating COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, which when it became public, the excesses of the FBI and the activities of the CIA inside the United States, which are illegal, when that all became public, the public said, hey, no more. And we had courageous members of Congress who served on the Frank Church Committee. It was headed by Senator Frank Church, who exposed 90%, not all, but 90% of the cards. And they talked about what COINTELPRO, what the FBI had done against Dr. King, what the FBI had done against the anti-war movement. They talked about what they had done, what the CIA had done in targeted assassination. All of the cards were laid out so that the American people would have an idea of what their government was doing. Now we have the most secrecy, and this is coming from a president who said that there was going to be transparency introduced in government. So the whole thing is rotten. Now, what is it that we have to do, Alex, in order to cut out? We have to excise that part that's rotten and then try and rejuvenate it with healthy organisms. The healthy organisms, that's us. That's us. And so the first thing that we have to do is defend ourselves and make sure that the government doesn't encroach on us any more than it already has.
I agree. Former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney's there, and we'll put her Facebook up on screen. What's the best way for people to find your Facebook? Just type in Cynthia McKinney Facebook. Okay, folks, we've got to identify this system as illegitimate first, point out it's criminal, and then we've got to get together and start saying no and have unity. That's what they're scared of. You know, if you watch CNN or Fox News, you wouldn't even know who Cynthia McKinney was by the things they said about her, the way they twisted what she stood for. It's like MSNBC saying that I said Obama sent a tornado to Oklahoma. Said no such thing. But they say I'm deeply racist, and they don't even show a clip of me saying anything deeply racist. They show nothing. And that's what they would do with her, is just harass her, not let her in the Capitol, act like she did something wrong. Just basic COINTELPRO garbage. They will do stuff like, you know, go to people's preachers. And most big preachers at megachurches are now FBI InfraGard assets, I mean, on record. They try to recruit every dentist my dad knows to spy on people, and they tell them, you know, leave your husband or leave your wife if the person's politically active. The preachers tell them that. They've got most of the authority figures, because the average authority figure gets approached by the FBI or the CIA, and they go, I'm a secret agent. I get an InfraGard card. I get a clergy response team card. And then you tell people, hey, most of these big megachurch preachers are government agents now. And people just don't even believe it. Because, well, that's not a free country. That's not happening. Cynthia McKinney, finishing up in the short segment, long segment coming up. I want to get into what's happening around the world and where you see things going. But finishing up with what you were getting to about how to stop this. And I mean, you're a go-getter. I think we need courage. Look what you did exposing the trillions missing at the Pentagon. Look at what you did exposing the government pedophile rings. Look at what you did exposing it all. They didn't even deny it when you brought it all up, but they looked scared. And so they threw everything they had against you to kick you out of Congress to put a guy in there that thinks islands float.
You're so right. You know, it's true. It is true. It's surreal. And the thing that I would ask people to do is just please go to the polls and vote. But before you press the button for that person, that candidate, please know something about that candidate. And that is something that I believe too many people do. They're committed to voting, or either they don't vote. And if they are committed to voting, then they don't know for whom to vote. So we've got to do a better job of putting the word out and getting the message out and grilling these candidates, grilling these people who want to be our representatives in power, whether it's the Congress or the state legislature or the city council or the school board. We've just got to do a better job. And the other thing I think that's important is that we've got to test ourselves. We have got to become courageous. And that means being fearless. That means conquering our fear, not necessarily being fearless. I won't say that, but conquering our fear. So, for example, Alex, I have always been this, sort of gun control type person until I saw the excesses and I said, okay, I'm not in favor of gun control anymore. I believe in the Second Amendment. But, that took a lot of courage to do that because that's totally new territory for somebody like
me. That's sacrilege for a true liberal, like Thomas Jefferson, a true Democrat. But nowadays, I mean, that's a sacrament. You don't say you're pro-gun, but you did that. You had the courage.
That's right. That's right. And I'm out here now. I'm out here, and but I'm confident. I believe in my stance, and I know that the founding fathers put the Second Amendment in there for a reason, and it's probably because of things like the development of this InfraGard that you're talking about, and the Department of Homeland Security, and these purchases of ammunition, and on and on and on, the obliteration of the Bill of Rights. The Constitution doesn't even look like itself any longer. And this is something that we've allowed to take place.
Official Cynthia McKinney at Facebook, and she's with us right now. Holder claims vast amount of discretion in enforcing federal laws, and Obama more than ever is acting as an executive branch dictatorship, which they'll pass on to the Republicans. That's why the Republicans haven't really been trying to shoot any of this power grab down, because the special interests that own both parties want authoritarianism. Look at how the CIA, in every case, doesn't put in new good elected governments. They put in dictatorships. They put in Al-Qaeda. They overthrow Ukraine, and then Russia grabs a tiny part of it, and they say Russia invaded. I'm not romanticizing Russia. It's just the facts, folks. The U.S. with NATO attacked Russia in 888 in Georgia. And CNN, that was a big learning experience for me that morning when I woke up. My wife's like, look, Russia's attacked Georgia. And I walk in at like 7:30 in the morning, turn on the TV, and CNN's reporting Russia has attacked Georgia. And it took me 2 hours to look at foreign press, and they later admitted it, that they'd attacked Russian military bases on the border and killed everybody. I mean, folks, that's dangerous media when they do stuff like that. And I wanted to go back to Cynthia McKinney, because I know she's very well traveled around the world. We can pull up articles where they now admit in the Christian Science Monitor, you name it, that Libya is a hellhole compared to an oasis that it was for the development of Africa. In the Coney 2012 scam, they're now invading 8 different African countries for resources. African is a con. And look, you got to have Obama as the front man to do it. If Bush would have tried it, no one would have ever gone along with this. Cynthia, I just threw out the waterfront on international situation. What do you want to get into first?
Well, Ukraine demonstrates the purposeful destabilization policy of the United States. And so now, and you're right to point out that these things are being done by fiat, really. You know, if you got fiat money, then you can government by fiat as well. But you've got the death penalty for U.S. citizens by executive order, and you've also got the death penalty for entire countries. That's what we are witnessing. And so Ukraine might not ever be the same again. Look at the destruction that's going on in Syria. I was in Syria at the time that Assad granted the interview to Fox, and Dennis Kucinich was there. And, there were bombs going off, but I got some experience in that. But I noticed how some people were running and cringing and crouching and, every time there was this big thunderous jolt to the hotel that we were in. But Syria is not going to be the same again for a very long time. And so you can just go right down the line. And
you're pointing out that's the mission, is destabilization. It's wreck the country, break it in 3 parts, turn Al-Qaeda over to be in control, and then lecture us to give our rights up all day because Al-Qaeda is hiding under the desk.
Now, what I've done, that I've taken a break, a 1-hour break, just so I could talk to you, and then I'm going to turn immediately back to my PhD work. And I'm working on Venezuela. One of the things that came out of WikiLeaks, and I've gone through all of the documents, some 2,200 documents on Hugo Chavez, greatly sanitized, I have to say. But I'm happy that we at least have these documents to look at whether they're sanitized or not, because they can't sanitize everything out of them. And this organization from the Global Intelligence Files, which were the Stratfor, which is right there in Texas, the Stratfor intelligence emails that were sent out, you discover that there's this whole sort of backwash of U.S. policy. This is not anything new because it happened in the COINTELPRO program, but it seems now to have been outsourced to these various, you know, shadowy organizations, Blackwater or whatever, you know, and then they do the dirty work, but it's still at the end of the day paid for by us taxpayers. So what I have discovered is that the outpour that helped in the destabilization of Serbia, which led then to the downfall of Milosevic, and that's someone that I met. I was on that congressional delegation that was led by, it was a delegation that had members of Congress on it that was led by Holbrooke. And so we sat there and I had a chance to meet Milosevic. And unfortunately, you know, this is the way our government seems to operate, is that you get these members of Congress who really don't know anything other than what they've been told by the very people who are creating the problem. And then they go in and spout the same stuff without having done the background work. Well, anyway, Milosevic is brought down. This organization, OTPOR, establishes a relationship. The leadership of OTPOR establishes a relationship with the folks at Stratfor. And then before you know it, you've got the exact same thing happening. Now it's happening in Venezuela. So OTPOR has a playbook. And if we look at the playbook, then we can see it happening. We can see it being implemented in Ukraine, in Iran, in Libya, over and over and over again. So now the question that the people of the United States have to ask themselves is this what we want our government to do? Is this something that we are proud of as citizens of the United States? Is our government acting with our values as it acts in our name? And if the answer is no, then we have to do something about it. We have to resist. We have to find our courage. We have to find that courage, overcome the fear once we've informed ourselves and say, okay, we're going to do something different. And so that's why one of the things I really probably shouldn't say anything because I haven't, you know, sort of sourced this out yet. But
finished codifying it all. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is my idea. My idea is they want us to maintain walls of separation among the people of the United States, among the people who are footing the bill.
No, they admit divide and conquer. They admit divide and conquer. Yeah, that's the...
So why not have some of us come together and go around the United States? Let's have someone from the extreme far right. They're telling me that the militia is my enemy. I don't know that militia is my enemy. And I guarantee you, if I talk to people who are part of the militia, maybe we'll find out that there's at least some level at which we can work.
Oh, Cynthia, the real militia, guaranteed, listening to you right now, agrees with almost everything you're saying. And again, that's what the issue is. They want everybody scared to death. There's the Ron Paul real Tea Party that was bullhorning Republicans and Democrats. Then the Republicans tried to take that over to get the Democrats to hate it, to create another divide and conquer. That failed. So now the Republican leadership with the Democrats is giving money to kill the real Tea Party. And then they don't want, quote, minorities to think they could be pro-gun or they could be pro-sovereignty. This is how they've done a number on everybody. But we have pro-gun marches that have got everybody out there, and we love it, and it scares the system. But briefly getting back to Stratford, we've been over there probably 10 times in the last decade trying to get an interview from these people. And they always have their security guards throw us out. In fact, we ought to show that sometime. But the point is that Stratford, when the emails came out, and we have it up on screen, wanted to show bin Laden body photos to shut up lunatics like Alex Jones and Glenn Beck, saying it was fake. And then we track back people that it looks like are connected into them once all that comes out, trying to then say that I work for them. So see, that's how sophisticated COINTELPRO is that when it came out, they had operations to discredit us. Immediately, all these people started saying we were with them to smokescreen the fact that this CIA front group was coming after me. See how sophisticated that is?
Well, it's very sophisticated. And that's why we have to be able to snuff it out and smell it out. And the only way we can know what's in the playbook is to study what's been in the playbook in the past. And this kind of, they call it bad jacketing, where they put out a lie. And in fact, a member of the American Indian movement, Anna Mae Pictou Aquash, was murdered because they said that she wasn't an FBI informant, and all she was a very promising leader for the American Indian movement.
Amazing. Well, that's why Cass Sunstein at the White House said create infighting. And that's why anybody you see out there who isn't talking about issues, who isn't talking about freedom, who isn't talking about the basic Bill of Rights, but who's talking about infighting all day and attacking other people, you can bet your bottom dollar they're the real operative. They're the real informant.
Well, now that's why I decided that once I finish with this very intense work that I'm doing right now, I would like to reach out to 4 or 5 folks, and then we just travel all different political persuasions, and we just travel around the country as a group, and we have like town hall meetings where we talk. And I think that just by doing that, it will have an audience that is as diverse as the people who are on the panel. And then we just sit down and talk, and we let our hearts open. So we're not concerned about, well, did I use the wrong word or did I say it the wrong way? All of that political correctness stuff will be thrown out for the moment so that we can be honest with each other.
Sure. Well, that's all done to stifle real debate and to make everybody so scared of everybody. A new political correctness, this modern thing, is to overwrite what Martin Luther King came out with and was saying it's common sense, judge people on the character of their deeds, their content, of what they do, who they stand for what's going on in their heart, soul, and mind, not off what religion or color they are. Now they've taken a liberal movement, turned it on its head, and made it all about what group are you in? So that you cease to be an individual, so you can't interface with other individuals. You've now got to operate as a group, and then you've got to operate with a leader telling you what to do.
That's exactly right. And as long as it's as things are that way, then the same old folks stay in charge. There's one thing, Alex, that I've been immersed in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, WikiLeaks, global intelligence files. You know, I had another stalker, and he was from Texas. And I didn't know until I was into those global intelligence files that Stratford was in Texas. I'm just wondering, I'm just wondering, why is it that folk who come to me in ways that are unwanted by me seem to come from Texas? But well,
I can tell you, Texas has been a just absolute hotbed of clandestine operations. So is New Mexico, and it's because a lot of the drugs are brought in here. Look at Arkansas and MENA. I mean, that's one of the big issues.
Well, did you talk about, I know you talked about the Malaysian plane, but did you talk about the 2 sets of war games that were going on? There was Cope Tiger and Cobra Gold. Did you talk about them?
Yes, I know. The whole thing's very suspicious, okay. and I obviously there's a cover-up. Well, you've got a lot of sources. What do you think happened?
Well, I don't know what happened, but I spoke to the former chief of staff, to the former prime minister in Malaysia. And this is what he said. He said that instead of trying to figure out how this was done. He said we ought to, he's a lawyer as well. He said we need to focus on who is the main question? Who has the motive and the capability to disappear a plane? He reminded me about the satellites, Diego Garcia, the NSA, and the improbability of losing an airplane when you've got war games going on in the region at the beginning, before the disappearance, and then after the disappearance. And, there are not very many countries that do have that kind of a capability. Now, what he likes to put forward is this notion that the intelligence war that's going on between East and West, between the United States and the Five Eyes, and what China might have, and that the poor people on the plane are being held in the middle of this now. The families and the people on the plane are in the middle of this great intelligence war as to who has the capability and who's going to disclose the capability that they have. That's his take on it.
That's right. Who brought it down by remote control, which all these planes now have on board, and then it becomes a big, blackmail by some party to reveal all this. Plus, you have a brain heist with all these top scientists on board. Cynthia, we've only got a few minutes left. It's always great to have you, and I hope you'll come back more often and we can take some calls next time. Briefly, 6% approval rating for Congress in some polls, 9 and 10 in others. Almost everybody I know doesn't laugh at me anymore. They don't laugh at you. They say, yeah, we're in trouble. What do you do about it? As there's a total loss of confidence in the system, I don't think the police state's going to be able to protect the establishment.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And what it's going to take is us being together and being able to communicate with one another. That's why your show is so important, because you have people on there from all walks of life, and therefore you are providing a service for us to be able to communicate no matter what my background is. I feel the same as you on the Second Amendment. I feel the same as you on the Bill of Rights. I feel the same as you on the future of our country. I feel the same as you on what our country is currently doing, domestically as well as to the rest of the world. So how can we magnify what you are able to bring?
And what you've done. Cynthia McKinney, folks can check out your Facebook, official Cynthia McKinney. Thank you so much. Look forward to talking to you again soon.